we can use Postman, and I've already set our variables here. So you can now see indeed that we have 2 schemas in our data service. So you can just do get data / and then you receive the schemas that are available. If I quickly select only the fields that I need, let's select the name of our schema. So we can see that we have 2 schemas here, which one is called sleep data and one is called sleep files. So we can test it out. So maybe let's create a document here. Documents. So now we can retrieve all the documents inside of that collection. Obviously, there are no documents in there yet, but we can create just a document. So this is the way that the task is going to do it. So for this was the sleep data. So we can add a timestamp, sleep percentage, and sleep state, for example. Post, obviously. This, and then you can see, okay, start. So we'll retrieve the document itself. We'll retrieve that one. So now indeed we can see that we have a first document inside of our sleep data schema with a timestamp of the 22nd of November, sleep percentage 80, REM sleep. And let's say that I try to submit something I was running during sleeping. I can also try to post that, but that won't work because the string is not in one of the allowed values. So because it's sleep state, and we've defined only REM, light, deep sleep, and so on. So that's how your API, the API uses the schema to determine how it should function. Good. All right. So it seems that our API is working. Good. Next thing to dig into is the task. So for the task, for the task, we're going to create a folder called tasks. And it's going to work the same way as our schemas. So we're going to add a GitHub action afterwards that will automatically try to deploy our tasks to our X-Horizon environment. So the thing that I need to do then is tasks. So I'm going to create a new directory, sleep file processing task, and then it should have been created here. I'm gonna go into that one. All right. Because we're gonna use Node for this this task, so we're gonna write a small script, or a very small script that that does this, and we're gonna add Node. So first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna do yarn init. I can close these files. So yeah, we'll call it sleep file processing task. I'm just gonna skip these ones for now. So this way our project has been set up. And for this task, we're going to use some external modules, some external dependencies in this project. So we're going to write our code in TypeScript to add some typing. And for that, we'll need to add a few elements. And we're also obviously going to use the X-Horizon SDK. So yarn add X-Horizon, sorry. Some / JavaScript SDK. So that's gonna add our JavaScript SDK from the X-Horizon to our one of our dependencies, and we're gonna need to, for local testing, add .env save to load our environment variables. So let's install that one as well. Save like this. All right. We're also gonna need some dev dependencies. So as I said, we're gonna use TypeScript. So dev TypeScript. Add TypeScript. It's taking a while. Yep. All right. And we're gonna need to add some types for node. So let's add that one as well. Dev types node. Yeah. And we're gonna add the types for .env save, so it's easy to work with them as well. Dev types .env save. All right. So if we look into our packagization JSON, we see that all our dependencies, dev dependency, have been added, and we also have a folder called node modules, is where external modules will live. So to complete our TypeScript setup, we need to add a tsconfig file. So I have one set up here as well. So let me just create that. This. All right. That's that. All right. So TypeScript config should be completed. And as we're using .env save, we want to test because we want to test locally. We'll need to add two files. So the first one is going to be .env not example, and this is going to contain a list of environment variables that need to be present in order to run our project. So without this file, this file just contains our variable values, so the code knows what it needs. So here we have our API host, consumer key, consumer secret, token, and token secret. So you can just save this, and then next thing we're gonna add is our .env file. All right. So next thing we need to do is we're gonna create a source directory, and we're gonna create a first script that we'll call it our test script. And with the test script, we're gonna write some code that is gonna test how our task works. So we're gonna write test.ts like this. All right. So first of all, for our we're gonna set up the SDK. So we'll need to import from the Horizon SDK creates one client, and obviously we're gonna need to import .env save from this. We need to config it. And then we're going to set up our SDK. So SDK equals creates auth1 client. And we need to add the consumer key. So that's process.env.api auth consumer key consumer secrets. It's going to be process.env. API OAuth consumer secret, and our host, which is process.env.api host. Let me just check if that is correct. So we have our API auth consumer key, consumer secret, and API hosts. And if we look in our example file, hosts, consumer key, consumer secret. All right, that seems good. And then we're going to write a function test. And the first thing that we need to do is authenticate. So we're going to use the SDK to authenticate. So we need to add our token. So that is API OAuth token and token secret SDK, process.env.api API auth token secrets, like this. So now we've set up our basic SDK setup. If this all works, for the sake of testing, let's do console.log, and we'll just log success. In case something goes wrong, we won't see success, but otherwise we will be able to know that we successfully authenticated, and at least this part of the code works. To run this part, we'll need to add scripts to our package.json. So let's add that one here, scripts. And we will add 2 scripts. So start means yarn test. Build, it's going to be ESC. That's going to trigger TypeScript, and test means yarn build, and afterwards we're gonna want to trigger our test script. So we'll call it from here, which is gonna be /build/test.js. So that should be able to trigger our test script. So now, if that all works, we should be able to do yarn test. That's gonna build. One error. All right, I need to add my .env file and .example file to here. Good. All right. So now we have success. So this means that our first part of our solution worked. So now we are adding our raw sleep data file. So let I have that stored right here. So we can just add that to our, for the sake of simplicity, we'll just add that to our task. So how this, we're going to use it in the test script. So how this sleep file looks like is just, it's a CSV file with, on one side you have time, other side you have value, which is the sleep percentage. And we're going to split it up and then create a sleep file and analyze it for each one of those lines. So that's pretty straightforward. So let's do that. So we can use use the X-Horizon SDK to upload our file and receive our token. So we can read the read stream. So we're going to read the file. I'm going to need FS for this indeed. So import. Create read stream raw sleep data.csv like this, and then const file equals await SDK files create. We're gonna call it raw sleep data.csv. That's gonna be your name of our file, and then we're gonna add the read stream. So what this is gonna do is create a read stream and upload it to the file source. It's very simple. And normally, if that works, we should have a file as an output. So let's test this. Good. All right. Seems to be working. So we received our token back. So this is the token that both acts as the identifier as an access token for our file in the file source. So the next thing that we need to do is create a sleep file and upload the file token. So we're gonna create a new file here, which we will call sleepfile.ts. And a sleep file is going to be a simple interface, so it's easy to work with. And in the sleep file, if I remember correctly, we have file token defined, which was a string, and we had an error object defined, which had a name as a string and then a message. Just like this. Now we need to import that into our test script. Sleep file from sleep file. Like this. And then we have, so we have our file created. So next thing that we can do is retrieve the schema for which we data.schemas find by name. Schemas, sorry, find by name, and we need the sleep files schema. And then we're going to create a document equals await sdk.data documents create, and we're gonna add file as type schema.id, and we're gonna add the file token as the input. So that's file.tokens, and it's gonna be the first token that we need to return. Token. And then the document that we created should be here. So what we now done is we retrieved the schema, the sleep file schema, and we just, because we want to know the ID, we want to keep that flexible, keep that dynamic. And then we're going to create a document and add the file token as a parameter for to create the sleep file document. So we can run yarn test. So if that works, it uploaded a file to the file service, and then we created a document with this ID in the sleep file schema. So we should be able to retrieve that one and see if it exists. Not sleep data, but the sleep files. So now we can see indeed, so we created a file with this file token, and it ended up in the status processing. So it's in the status processing because obviously our task doesn't exist yet. We haven't uploaded yet. And it doesn't actually process our file. But at least nice to see that our document already gets created. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna create our actual code for our task, which is index.ts. And we're also gonna set up our SDK. So that's import. From OR Horizon. JavaScript SDK, and we're going to need to create one client. We want to use our .env from .env safe. One client, so we're going to set up our client again. So I'm just going to copy this piece of code from our previous setup. I can actually use in this part. And then we're gonna create a function. The function that is gonna be called by our task service. So that's gonna be function handler task. We're gonna give this a type task, and we're gonna retrieve this from the SDK. And then we're gonna need to authenticate first. Okay, I can also copy this part from the test file. Like this. And then indeed we can try to log the task that we get in. Now for testing purposes, let's instead of triggering this by the task service, we're gonna trigger this by our test document. So for this, so we've created our document, and then what we're going to do from our test script is we're going to import the handler. Import handler from like this, and then we're gonna use this right here. Handler. We're gonna provide a function name, which is gonna be called sleep file processing task, and our data will be, because this is the structure that is used by the task service to provide when you trigger a task from a schema. It will provide with you a schema ID, so that will be our schema.id, and then our document ID document.id, like this. So this all works. We first upload a file, upload our document, or create our document, then trigger the handler, which is then nodes part member handler. Let's see if this works. We can trigger yarn test again, and then we should be able to see our task being logged. So it seems I made a small mistake here. Handler. So that seemed to work fine. So what is done now? So we have a test script, uploads the file, creates the document, and then we have our task that gets logged. So now we can actually start building our actual script. So let's next load the uploaded file. So because with the input that we have from our file, we can now load the document and file. So first we're gonna extract the schema ID and document ID from the data, so it's easy to use. We're gonna retrieve our document, and we can do this using the SDK again. So that's data.documents.find by ID. So that's schema ID and document ID. Yep. And then we need to load the actual file, because we have inside the document we have the file token. So the file buffer we're going to use is going to be sdk.files retrieve documents data file token, and we can use our sleep file type, so it's easy to work with. So then you have file token and const file equals file buffer string. So we'll convert it to UTF. And then we can test it out. So we can console file. So that should just print out the file that we just uploaded to the file source. Yeah, so you can see this is our actual file with all our sleep data in it. So that's good. So the next step is to parse the CSV file into a more workable format. So let's parse CSV file to JSON. Or parse correctly. So file equals file dot, and we're going to split it. So we're going to split with every, and there's probably a better way to do this, a more correct way to do this, but I just want to keep it simple for now. So for each row, we want to split for every comma that we have. And then we want to map that value to parse that one. First output, and then we're going to return time and value fields. So if we can test that out again. Yeah, so now we have our time and our value. Great. Let's create now a new interface, which is going to be our sleep data file. Interface called sleep data, which is going to have timestamp, string, sleep percentage, which is going to be number, sleep state, which is going to be sleep state, and we're going to create that as an enum. Which awake will be awake, REM will be light. And then deep like this. Good. So we have our sleep data, sleep percentage, sleep state, which is an enum, awake, REM, light, and deep. Good. So now let's go into our parse file again. And we're going to add, instead of just returning the time and the value, we also want to run it through our algorithm. So let's make it very simple. If the value equals is bigger or equal than 90, then what I want to do is state. And we first need to find the state. So let state equal sleep state dot awake. And then my state equals indeed sleep state dot awake. And if the value is bigger than 100, I'll just leave top of my value at 100. And I need to change that to a variable, not a constant. All right. So else if my value bigger or equal than 60, my state will be sleep state dot rem. Else if my value is bigger than 30, my state will be sleep state dot light. And then else if my value is lower than 30, my state equals sleep state dot deep. And if the value 0, the value equals 0, just so that we top off at that part, like this. And then we need to return the time, the value, and ideally the state. We can then create the sleep state, our sleep data documents. So, right. So, sleep data schema equals await SDK data sleep schemas. Find by name, sleep data. And then let's just iterate over every sample we found inside of the parsed file. I'm uploading sleep data sample. That we're aware of, in case something goes wrong, that we know where it went wrong. And then we can just upload our data. Documents.create. That's going to be schema.id that we need to provide, and then the request body will be sleep data schema. Otherwise, we're going to have the sleep file schema, and that's not what we want to do. And the data that we want to provide is the timestamp. Which is sample.time.to is a string. Then second, we want to store the sleep percentage. Sleep percentage. We can use the typing here as well. Sleep percentage sample, and the value that we have for, and then for sample, and then the sleep state sample.state. All right, so this should be it. So we can check our first. So we have created a few files already in our file token part, but no sleep data. All right, so now what happens is we load our file, we parse our file into a time, a value, and a state, and we apply our sleep labeling algorithm, and then we're going to upload the sleep data documents to the sleep data schema. Good. Now let's add some error handling around our task, so we can transition the sleep file document in case anything goes wrong, or move it to a completed state when parsed correctly. So I'm just gonna add a try catch around this entire block. So that would be like this, catch error. And in case an error happens, we will want to move our sleep data schema. Okay, so we want to move our sleep file to, so that's data dot documents dot transition. So we're gonna add an initiate a transition on the document that's currently in processing. So we're gonna need the sleep file schema, and that is just our schema.id, schema ID, our document ID, because that's the document that we want to transition. But we also need our transition, our actual I'm gonna need our transition ID. So for this, I'm gonna add just above or just below the document section, I'm gonna retrieve the schema as well. So that's gonna sleep file schema SDK. Data.schemas.find by name, and that's gonna be sleep files. And then later on we can use this one because we will need it in our transition ID. So the ID of the transition that we want to do, we can extract from our sleep file schema, and we can do this by find the transition by name function. So we just have to supply the name, which is to error. And then the actual data that we want to provide, which is going to be error. And inside of error, we want to have a name. We will call unexpected error. And the message would be message, so that we know what exactly went wrong. The only thing left to do then is, in case it does go right, in that case we want to move or transition, also initiated transition. We want to transition our sleep file document to completed. So document ID. And then the only thing that we need to provide here is the ID of the actual transition. We also can find the transition by name. And here our name is complete processing. Semicolon. Good. So this should be it. So now that if I test this, and this entire block needs to be inside. This. So that should be it. So in case that we run this right now, a file should be uploaded, a file document should be created, or a sleep file document should be created. That should stay in processing as long as it's actually processing. It will upload all the sleep data documents to the sleep data schema collection. And then once finished, it should move our sleep file document into the completed state. So to monitor it, just let us monitor the sleep file documents. And I can use RQL here, so I can sort on the creation timestamp of when these files were uploaded. So all those previous ones have been set to processing. So if I now test this one, let's hope this works out. So it's uploading our all right, so all right, took me a while, but I know what the error is. So what I did wrong is obviously I tried to transition the document to complete processing while I was still in the for loop. So this one should be here. So we can try that again. Yeah, so that looks like our file is in, you can see that it's still in processing. Sorry. So it's uploading all the sleep data. So now that our task is finished, normally our status should be completed. So indeed, this file has been completely uploaded to our X-Horizon environment. So if we take a look at the sleep data documents, we can see that there are in total 287 sleep data files uploaded, and we can now use, for example, RQL to query through them. So we can use, let's say we want data dot all the moments that we were in REM sleep. We can easily filter out that, and we know that we have 43 REM sleep cases. and we can use that in our next step. So the only thing that's left to do is add a new GitHub action. So in GitHub, we can create a new file, which we will call ci tasks.yaml. Tasks YAML. And again, I have a CI ready to go here. And then we can commit and deploy that part. We can do git add, so we everything, go back to our root. So make sure we commit everything. And we can call this our sleep file processing task. Yep. And then we can git push. Let's look at GitHub. So we have both our CI for schemas and our tasks. You can optimize this by only triggering the schemas in case the schemas are changed, or the tasks in case the tasks are changed. So if we take a look at the task itself, we can see that they have built correctly. So the next thing that we can do is we can test the entire flow. So with our test script, we typically trigger the handler right from the script, but we can now maybe remove this part, and we can log our document. Our document is uploaded, our task is in place, and normally now it should automatically trigger the processing of our task. Good, so the only thing that left to do is then yarn test. Sorry, I need to be inside of the tasks. Yarn test. Yeah, all right. Need to remove that from the import as well. Yeah, so we have a document that's created. So now, normally now online, that should be triggering our task. So let's find this document inside of the sleep files. And we can see that it's already completed. We weren't fast enough. It already completed processing our file. So maybe let's try another one. So next file. So it's still processing. And now it's moved to completed. So it's processed our file. So normally we've processed 2 files right now. It's always the same data. You can add some checks there as well, or add some indexes to the timestamp, for example. But normally our sleep data should now contain much more data than previously. So let's check the documents. We can now see that it has 570 processed sleep data samples. And again, if we do data dot sleep state, for example, check for all the light sleep. We have 68 samples of light sleep. All right, so that's our first part of our demo. So we've built our REST API. We can upload files. We can they automatically get processed. So that's it for this part of the tutorial, and thank you for watching.